how did you meet Will, your husband?
Cora Turner, Mara Rice, and I were first cousins. And Cora Turner married J.T. Rice, and that's Will's brother. We both went to Converse College.
Okay.
We were cousins. And Eunice Rice went to Converse College too. And she invited us to sit at her table because her brother was coming over to tell her goodbye. He was getting ready to go overseas to the war. And he was in the Navy, and he came and sat at the table, and we all sat there together. And I met Will that day, and there were 12 of us sitting at the table. He wrote Eunice after he got overseas and wanted to know what my name was. He wanted to start writing me. And he was handsome, very, very handsome fellow. So I got this letter from Will, and I was excited. Yes, I was thrilled to death. And so we had a good time writing, wrote back and forth for 2 years. He got home in June, and then we got engaged in October. Didn't take too long. He was a Navy, what they called Navy SEAL now. They called it
Frogman.
Frogman.
Right.
Frogman then.
Frogman in the Navy.
Yes, he was a frogman in the Navy. Oh my goodness, we fell in love right away. Well, he lived in Belton. His parents lived in Belton. Rice Mills was started in April in 1947, and he was not connected with any of the Blair Mills or any at that time.
Okay.
And he started out selling diapers and making diapers out at the plant on Anderson Street in Belton. And then they went to boxer shorts. Then they went into the terrycloth bathrobes. And the reason they went into the terrycloth bathrobes, Will was he knew that he had to get a good price on things to be able to sell in New York. He would get on the train at 5 p.m. as often as he could afford to go up.
Okay.
And I would make him a sandwich to take because he couldn't go in the dining car. We were on a strict budget because we didn't have anything to live on. He didn't have any, income,
Yeah.
and except what little he was making on those diapers, because the dining car was terribly expensive. At that time, we thought it was probably $5. He just was a very jolly, easygoing person and got along with those people up there. They ended up eating out of his hands.
Really?
They really did. I mean, he was so kind to them. I mean, he was a kind person anyway, and that's the way he ran his business when it got bigger.
He knew his employees.
He knew every one of them by name, and they would come in and tell him about their children, and he knew about their families, and some of their families came and worked for Rice Mills. I knew everybody in the office, and I knew lots of them in the plant. I'd go back. I wouldn't go back into the plant often, but I did over the years. I went often, over the many years. We came up with a new line of play clothes. I made the first pattern, and he took it to F.A.O. Swartz on Fifth Avenue in New York. They said they would like it, but they would want more. Bride's Nurse, Alice in Wonderland, Little Red Riding Hood, and then Halloween costumes, and ballerinas and cheerleaders, and anything we could think of, we made. And I made all the patterns, but I never got on the payroll. But anyway, I did that for love,
Sure.
J.C. Penney was their biggest sales, I would say. Finally, the buyers were so crazy about them, they started coming to the plant, and we started entertaining them in this house.
Did you really?
Yeah, they came. He asked them if they would like to see the plant, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'd like to see the plant." So it used to be that he used to wait, and then they started coming down here. One of them came and brought his wife and stayed a week. In 1955, lightning struck Rice Mills and burned it smack to the ground. It was out there by the cemetery, and it burned. everything they had. And within 10 days, the plant was up and running again. Will rented a building uptown and called the Singer sewing machine people and got them to bring sewing machines. And he told them what had happened, and they were very nice, and they sent a man down and set the sewing machines up for him. Singer sewing machine did. And he got lots of help that he didn't even know he was going to get, but they were all very, very helpful, and the people in town were helpful, and he was back in business in 10 days. And Will opened an office and showroom up in the Empire State Building in New York. Blair Mills was making terry cloth in Belton, and he realized that he could send a truck over there to get that terry cloth. So he thought, I can save money right there. And Will would make whatever the buyers wanted, he would make. He'd come home and figure out how to make it after he got home.
Yeah.
I remember the bean bags, he gave him a little trouble because they were made with plastic, out of plastic. But he made bean bags. He got those bean bags made. Eventually, Rice Mills was able to cut and sew any kind of fabric they wanted, like bathing suit cover-ups and all kinds of things. And they also sold to cruise ships and hotels. But they couldn't go into too many hotels because it would be in competition with Blair Mills. So they limited their, what they could do. Then after a while, Will got cancer, developed cancer, and he had to retire. I'm 94, so I can't think of all these things I'm supposed to think.
I think you're doing wonderful for 94.
I'm trying my best to
You're
think
doing
of things. Business was his hobby, and he never had a computer until when he got cancer. And he decided he would try to make money in the stock market, so he rented him a computer. He didn't know anything about a computer, but he got somebody to teach him about a computer, and he rented a computer out there while he was taking radiation treatments. He didn't let that get him down. And he was so busy I couldn't talk to him because he said he was going to make money every single day that we were out there to pay the rent that it was costing us in the Rotary House. So he bought and sold stocks online. They realized that they had to do more to diversify, to keep in business. And so they opened a plant in Mexico and got rid of those plants down in those other two places, West Shoals and Ridge Springs. And they tried to make some less expensive products to try to compete with all the imports. Rick felt like the company could survive if they blended the cost of the imports and the domestic products cost. And so he set off to Pakistan, India, Turkey, China, and tried to find some places that could make the product as nice as they made it in the terry cloth bathrobes, as nice as they made it. And they also sold, Land's End was one of their biggest buyers.
And basically they just hung on as long as they could.
Yes, they did, absolutely. And Rick stayed, they and Gene Clinkscale stayed a long time too. But Rick and Ella May, I need to say this, Ella May Scarborough was the secretary. She wasn't right at the very, very beginning. I don't remember when it was she started, but it was close to the beginning.
Yeah.
And she was the last one there.
And basically, Rick and her turned the lights out at the plant and walked out.
That's right.
That was the end of that story.
Lots of them had worked there over 40 years, and less than that worked there 50 years.
During those 60 years, Miss Rice, give me your assessment of what rice mills meant to the town of Belton.
Oh, everybody loved going out there and getting things. You know, they could just go out there and if they wanted a bathrobe, they'd go get a bathrobe, you know, and pay for it and get it for cost. You know, the town people, you know, they loved rice mills. They liked it, I think. And of course, at the end, they got all kinds of bargains.
Right.
They would have stayed in Belton and expanded the plant, but they didn't have enough people to come in and work. Oh, when Will was in Johns Hopkins, he figured out a way that the surgical gowns could be made and that would be more efficient, not where you'd be covered up in the back. And so he told me to show him how to do that, and I did that because I was staying up there with him. And they moved and made surgical gowns because of that, and uniforms and patient hospital gowns to keep the factory open. So Will was lying in his bed thinking about what they should be making then because he knew it was bad, you know. But this process continued for 10 more years and added our own fleece jackets. They added fleece jackets at that time. Again, I mean, mostly they just made things that they had already made, except for those surgical gowns that had to be thrown in there, and patients' gowns. Our proud company has lasted many years, 60 to be exact, many more than had been predicted. Many different products were proudly made by local employees in the USA. We had begun a wonderful company that believed in hard work, honesty with all customers and buyers, and selling quality products at the lowest possible price. His company was known throughout our country and even the world where they had people to make things for them. So that was the end of that.
It's a pretty impressive legacy.
Well, I think it was. Since we started off with 4 machines, we were kind of pitiful starting off because we didn't have any money coming in, and my mother was 40 years old when I was born. My parents had lived through the Depression. My daddy always said, a penny saved is a penny made. And if I didn't cut off the light when I went out of the room, I was sent back to get it cut off. And so I grew up knowing that you had to be tight with your money because you might not have it. And it was only because they had to live through the Depression. I still am that way. And I still cut off the lights when I walk out of the room.